Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Blaster Master 02. In the last part we finished off our business on Stranga and then went to go do some planetoids throughout the cosmos at the moment. And now it's time for us to go finally access Area F. I'm feeling much better. I wonder if Kana's medicine did the trick. I didn't know what to think when Kana suddenly demanded fruit, but the medicine she made seems to be keeping Eve's condition steady. We only went to that area as a detour to get the access key, but even so, we got parts for GAIA-SOPHIA and that medicine. I'm glad we went. Time is of the essence, but if we rush on this journey, we might end up with more trouble than we started with. You're right. I'm glad you're looking out for me, but don't lose sight of what's in front of you, okay? Right. The closer we get, the more I gotta keep it together. Ironically, it's gonna be hard to keep it together on a planet this very literally divided. We've safely touched down on planet Divido. What's the stuff dividing up this planet? The sector's the same way. By my analysis, those appear to be dimensional distortions. Dimensional distortions? You might call them tears in space. This planet has even been split cleanly in half. Because of that, the planet exists as two extremes side by side, glacier and desert. So I guess we landed on the desert side, Area F1. Be careful with the distortions. If you were to touch them directly, even GAIA-SOPHIA's tough armor couldn't withstand the force. Got it. I'll be careful. The access key is... sorry, I can't get an exact reading. It might be due to the distortions, but it's definitely on this planet. If our experiences so far have taught us anything, a boss mutant probably has the key, so we'll have to go track that down first. So, this planet's pretty dangerous, to say the least. Area F1. All the sand makes it hard to move. The environment was disrupted by the dimensional distortions. Watch your step, and make sure not to get caught in quicksand. GAIA-SOPHIA can avoid sinking with the burn spark or hover, but we gotta be careful with our SP consumption. Also, don't get distracted by the sand and touch the distortions. Got it. I'll stay alert. Stay alert you should. Anytime you see that pattern that's on screen right now, the white, black, purple, and blue, that is instant kill when you touch it, be you in Sophia or just stand alone as Jason. This planet can be dangerous for that alone, but you also have to contend with the literal split atmosphere of it. When you're in the desert section, quicksand can drag you down into dimensional distortions and you can avoid sinking in it using the burn spark or hover, but there's times you might want to because it'll allow you to progress to the next screen for progress, either to find caverns, power-ups, or anything like that. On top of that, in the desert sections, in caverns, quicksand still exists but is there to push you around like a conveyor belt. This can be kind of annoying because this area now also actively adds in switches into the mix. You get near a switch, you can press it and make platforms rise or lower. There are usually 2 to 3 colors of these switches that correspond to the same color matching block. The tricky thing is when you use that in tandem with the quicksand, because they can block the flow of quicksand in some cases, but will also open up other ones which you might need to use. With that said, one saving grace. The dimensional distortions are deadly to you, but they're also deadly to basically any enemy no matter what. So say you use the whip technique on Jason's blaster rifle, you can knock enemies into it and easily get this map without having to worry much about anything really. Planet Divido, though, is probably the largest main planet in the game. It definitely feels like it, at least because of how you have to adventure through it due to the distortions. Mind you, I say this might be the longest level in the game. By and large, from memory, the planets in this game are all roughly the same size. It's just the progression that largely changes in them. For instance, Montage, you start in the middle and then have to go left and right. Stranga is slower due to its puzzle nature, but it's about the same size. L229 is probably one of the smaller areas in terms of the absolute map square, but there's a lot of back and forth between that on a very linear long path. This is just literally 2 areas combined into one in that regard, I guess. That's one thing I really like about Blaster Master 02 versus 1. Every area has its own distinct identity. The only areas that really don't in that regard are the Planetoids, but even then, they tend to take something from the main planet in the given sector whenever you see a planetoid like that, so at least there's a little bit of bleed in with that. Because 01, well, it has its unique areas, like the lava area being a very linear pathway, the water area having the water mechanic period. A lot of the areas are by and large the same, it's just that you need new techniques to progress through them due to the more open world nature of it. Because the areas are very sanctioned off in this, they got to each have their own distinct identity, and I think it is ultimately for the game's benefit. That particular dimensional distortion might look correct, and it is, but it'll still kill you in one shot, so don't touch it. Just keep that place in mind for later. I also like the music here. I do think 02's soundtrack is probably weaker than 01's, but a large part of that is because 01's soundtrack is remaking so much genuinely good, iconic NES music in a way that is hard to top. Like, Area 1's main theme in 01 and Blaster Master 1 is, I think, one of my favorite themes on the NES period, so it's just kind of hard to top that. What's here is still really good, it's just weaker. From memory, Blaster Master 03's soundtrack kind of lands between the two, but I'd have to revisit it again. It's been a little bit for that one. By the way, our goal is just next door, so let's see what's over here.
Excuse me, are you an MA pilot?
Another human? In this place? What are you?
I'm not a human, but an automaton, that is, a support droid.
A support droid? Is there an MA on this planet?
Correct, I'm Mr. Tank's, Nora MA03 Adam support droid. Please, call me Tessit.
My name's Jason, her name's Eve, and this little guy here's Fred. If you're a support droid, does that mean Adam's pilot's nearby?
Let me see. Well,
could you speak a little louder?
Okay, sorry about that. Well, actually, I've lost him. Adam's pilot Stein and I were chasing a boss mutant, but it created a dimensional distortion and I got separated from Stein and Mr. Tank.
So the boss mutant was responsible for creating the distortions.
That's why, we just met, and I hate to trouble you, but Jason, please find Stein, please.
Jason, we have to help this poor girl. Eve. Alright, we'll search for Stein.
Thank you so much. Here.
Is this an access key?
This access key's for Area F2. Stein and Mr. Tank got sent there.
Ah. Another distortion? Test it! Jason, don't touch it. Damn it.
I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Please, just find Stein.
To get to Area F2, we need to use the tunnel in Area D. Area D, huh? Got it. Let's make our way there. Hang in there, Tessit. We'll save you and Stein. Alright. So now we technically need to actively leave the area, but I think there is an item I can grab along the way.
Tessit, are you sure you're alright?
This is no big deal, so don't worry. Even if I were with you, I couldn't be of much help.
Don't say that. I'm sure you could help.
Piloting and repairing Mr. Tank, fighting mutants, Stein can do all that by himself without me.
Tessit, I couldn't say anything to her. I understand that feeling too well. I always worry, am I just being a burden to Jason? If it weren't for me, Jason could be living peacefully on Earth.
Is everything okay? Do you need some rest? Oh, if this distortion were gone, I could treat you with nurse mode.
No, I'm fine. I should be worrying about Tessit, but I made her worry instead. Alright then, let's go search for Stein. Hey, wait a minute. I found him. At least, that looks like a metal attacker. Look behind you, Tessit. So, similarly to several other characters thus far, Tessit is based off another Sunsoft character. She is notably based off of Tessie, a robotic maid who's a playable character in the Sunsoft arcade fighting game Waku Waku 7. Now, compared to some of the other characters, there are a little more physical differences between the two, but it's basically confirmed because Tessit's hat has the number 1996 on it, which is Waku Waku 7's release date. And what's interesting is, and we'll get into more why as we see the eventual pilot when we meet Stein, they're actually one of the few pairs that's like from completely different games. Also, I guess on that note, characters I've actually forgotten to talk about thus far. Kenwood is original, but his design is actually based on a pun with the word sheep and butler in Japanese. And it kind of plays into Kana's design changing throughout the game's development. She was originally going to be more of a princess-like figure, and then when Stronga was going to be more of an aquatic planet, they had like a four-breasted shark woman design that actually does look kind of cool. The plant stuff sort of evolved from the princess design aesthetic through some reason. There's a whole set of like PowerPoint slides essentially you can see about her design more than even the others. And apparently, the reason she looks the way she does now is distinctively because one of the designers wanted to try and awaken something in people. And you know what? I appreciate that honesty, and I find it kind of funny. On a similar note, Tai Ganbei support droid is also completely original. I mentioned it before, but I really do like that they went out of their way to make like references to a lot of Sunsoft's other stuff, because for being a developer as old as they are, even though they were inactive for a little bit there if memory serves, they're not really well talked about or known, and I think that's kind of a shame because they really do make some good stuff. Like, Blaster Master as a whole, yes, is great, but I love it. And yes, Batman Gimmick is pretty fun, albeit apparently from memory very hard, from what I remember trying that out at one point. And some of their other games that are Japan exclusive look genuinely great as well. If anything, like their one dud from memory of me toying around with it after that one AVGN video is Fester's Quest. And even then, if I go back to that, I might find it more fun than I used to. Now, there's a couple of developers that are huge and have been around forever, but don't really get the recognition they deserve. I think Falcom's up there, even though they're getting more and more as time goes on, considering Trails is only getting more and more popular on top of Ease. Be careful, because now in this particular area, we actually have the first dungeon that's divided between the desert and the ice stuff. Ice in this game is slippery. Like, I know, no shit, but be careful of it because it's not always present. You can actively melt it with fire shots, though, in the case you have any of the fire-based sub-weapons like Torch Bomb. Use that because the slippery controls in this are kind of rough, especially considering they're usually found around very thin passageways. With that said, we're coming up on the enemy rush for this particular cavern. I'm going to talk about the sub-weapon we're going to get here in a moment, but I should note I'm also going to be speeding the way up out of Area F1 here on Planet Divido, because we've seen the entire route in, and at this point, there's nothing new on the way out, so we're just going to do it like that. This is the Absolute Comet. It's actually supposed to be Absolute Comet. Deploys a bit that protects from attacks and launches an ice blast when activating a blast counter. If you recognize that description, it's because it is a spin-off of the Reactive Comet sub-weapon, only it's Ice Elemental. Comes with half the ammo, so that means in order to use it to its fullest potential, you need to use all of it at once, but its function is the same. It's bits that will shoot out various types of projectiles or behave in certain ways I described with the Reactive Comet, except now it's Ice Elemental, so it has a chance of freezing enemies with every attack, though some enemies are ultimately immune. When an enemy is frozen, they're open for more damage, so capitalize on that as best you can. As for what gun levels the Absolute Comet and the Ice techniques can impact, with your base level 1G Blaster, if you shoot it through the bits of the Absolute Comet, they gain the Ice element so they can freeze things as well. Notably, the Seeker weapon, the level 4 weapon, can be impacted by the Absolute Comet bits. It imbues them with the Ice element as well. Otherwise, level 7's charge changes. Instead of a single charge shot, it discharges a spread of 5 projectiles without any piercing capabilities. And each one does, I think, about the same damage as the base level 1 blaster. But that means if you're right in front of something, it can do 5 times the damage, which can be pretty useful in that regard. And it freezes most enemies almost instantly, without any worry about the stun immunities and all that. This planetoid kind of sucks. This is a giant maze where you're going through the various pathways to press switches to make ladders appear so you can ultimately reach our reward at the end of it. Deaths here can be kind of punishing, but there's 2 checkpoints throughout it at least, so your progress does get saved at some point. What's especially dangerous is that there's a lot of points you just have to jump out of the Sophia and jump around as Jason, and in this case, yes, there's water beneath you, but there's going to be cases where there's not, and especially if you like doing what I do on ladders when climbing down, It's risky, but what I like to do with ladders to climb them faster in either direction is press the jump button to let go, and then press the up button a few frames later, so either we'll jump up and ascend to the platform faster than climbing it, or I'll jump down and just grab the ladder at a lower point where fall damage hopefully won't impact me. This is dangerous, but it is faster. I don't recommend it if you're a much more defensive player than I am. I might be stupid. So something I'm not sure if I've gone over yet, even in my Blaster Master 01 LP, is how stun mechanics in this game work, sort of. And from my memory, they're the exact same in 2. I'm going to look into this to make sure I'm right or wrong between parts. But essentially, enemies have 3 weakness states to any given weapon. There is stun, where the enemy will flash white and be stunned for about 1.5 seconds when it takes damage from any of its listed weaknesses, pausing its moving and attack patterns, but after that wears off, they are immune for a few seconds. I think bosses are immune for double that time. There's weakness where an enemy will flash red and just take double damage from the listed attack in question, on top of being stunned for a little bit after that. But then there's vulnerable. Vulnerable is only relevant in Blaster Master 01 because of its extra difficulty mode, Destroyer mode, where certain enemies can only be damaged, period, by certain things. So the thing to note here is experimentation on basically every enemy type can help a long way. Even if you die along the way, because of this game's lack of life system and the very generous checkpointing throughout, experimenting to find out what enemies are weak to what can do a lot to make your experience go a lot smoother. I tend to just no-brain aggressive with powerful weapons my way through things, but there are cases where you're going to want to use weaker weapons. Hell, we'll even see that in an upcoming boss fight or so. You know, I have to actually go in and look, because I'm curious if, like, the 03 manual even explains stuff like that. Because I actually do own 03 physically. I got the limited run games thing. I have the metal replica of the Blaster Master 01 Sophia, and I love it. It's constantly displayed in front of me. I was always sad I missed out on the version of that for Blaster Master 02 they did. I think also may have had BMZ1 in it. And if memory serves, if you imported, like, the Japanese version of these games, you can actively get the games with full voice acting by doing that. There are full Japanese dubs for these 3 games. I'm just kind of surprised they never did that for the EN releases, especially now in retrospect, considering Gunvolt 3 came out, I guess technically like, what, 1.5 years after 03, but that was fully dubbed, and apparently the delivery is really good. I still have to play that game. I have to play a couple of games still from Inti that I've missed out on, honestly. Even though I think some of their stuff's hit or miss, I still want to try it out because I think they're a really experimental studio in a way I appreciate. Alright, with pressing that last switch though, we're now good to head back to the entrance, climb these ladders, and get our ultimate reward for this planetoid, which is a planetoid map. From memory, a planetoid map you really want to go to, but it's kind of annoying in that regard. Also, if you can't tell, because we've been finally told to go to Area D to access Area F2. This is the point in the game you're supposed to actively go and fight Garuda and Leibniz in Area D, at least for the required fight. I've always found that a little weird that they placed it in the middle of an area like that, but I guess it works still, especially considering you'll have probably potentially forgotten about Kana's little foreshadowing at that point, depending on your break. I've never played the game like that, though, myself, because I always like to explore things as soon as I can in games like this. Hey, we got a new planetoid map for Area D, so at least there's gonna be something new there along the way. It doesn't happen, but I think it would be funny if you went there earlier, you fought Garuda, and you came there now, and you fight Garuda again. Just to be like,
Hey, you came back, what's up?
okay, from memory, there's also a new planetoid here in Area A, and this one's interesting. If a little bit annoying if you're trying to rush it. The way this one works is we're going to be as Jason alone, and it's going to be a gigantic black void that looks like a bottomless pit. But there's invisible platforms, and you're meant to use both the versions of your own shots that can bounce off walls, but also use these crab enemies' bubbles to figure out where the platforms are. If you're trying to rush this can be annoying because you don't know where the platforms are, but I like mechanics like this, weirdly, which is weird because they're a spin-off of Darkness gimmicks, and gimmick I am very outspoken of not liking throughout my LPs. So the fact I like this is interesting and weird to me. And at the end of it is a very interesting power-up. This is the Axel Charger. Removes power limiters from Jason's suit and blaster rifle temporarily. What this does is basically unlocks a new ability for each of your blaster levels while you have ammo for it. It does drain ammo every second, and it automatically deactivates when it goes to 0, but it's very interesting. I'll go more into what it does for each level starting next part. Just know that this is a very good boss killer, in the case you just like to go unga bunga power damage. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 9, we're gonna be heading through Area D for a quick stop before heading into the latter half of Area F to head back to Planet Divido. See you guys then.